Story time with Mr. Beat.
Hello, how are you? I can't hear what you're saying, but hopefully you're doing well. My name is Mr. Beat. Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, dramatically increased the power of the executive branch, or at least he tried to. One example of the way he did this was the nullification crisis.
Once upon a time, there was a man with awesome hair named John Calhoun. He was one of the most experienced and powerful leaders in American history, and he even served as vice president to both John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. However, Calhoun and Jackson didn't agree on a thing called nullification. Nullification means that a state has the right to ignore a federal law passed by Congress. By 1830, Calhoun had become a big fan of states' rights, and he thought that his home state of South Carolina had the right to nullify federal laws that were not in the best interest of South Carolina. Jackson did not like nullification because he thought it might set a dangerous precedent that could eventually break up the country. So Calhoun and Jackson, who both had fiery personalities, had a little feud over this. By 1832, Calhoun had had enough, and he became the first vice president in U.S. history to resign from office. One big reason why Calhoun resigned was because he was very angry by a tariff, a tax on goods transported in or out of the country, which raised taxes on imports. He believed the tariff unfairly targeted South Carolina, whose economy was already struggling at the time. After all, the tariff made goods cost a lot more money. So Calhoun promoted the idea that South Carolina should nullify, or simply ignore, the tariff. He even started a political party called the Nullifier Party. Andrew Jackson, to make matters worse, signed another tariff into law. Calhoun was like, "Oh no you didn't!" In late 1832, the South Carolina government declared the tariffs unconstitutional and officially announced it would not enforce them. South Carolina Governor Robert Hayne even went as far as threatening to secede from the Union if the tariffs weren't lowered. And then Andrew Jackson was like, "Oh no you didn't," and he signed the Force Bill, which authorized the president to use military force against South Carolina to make sure they paid the gosh darn tariffs. Jackson raised an army and sent it to surround South Carolina. John Calhoun was frankly a little shocked and worried at this firm move, so he worked with his old buddy, Henry Clay, to help create a resolution to this dilemma. A compromise was finally reached, known as the Compromise Tariff of 1833, which gradually reduced the tariffs over a period of the next 10 years. This made South Carolina sort of not mad anymore. Anyway, this was only a temporary solution, as the black tariff rose tariff rates just 2 months later. The nullification crisis was significant because this was a big sign of things to come. It further divided southern states from northern states, and it isolated South Carolina from the rest of the country. A generation later, South Carolina would be the very first state to secede from the Union, and would be where the Civil War began. The end.